Welcome, everyone in the United States, Canada, and around the world to another episode of It's a Wrap with Rap, the podcast of overcomers and useful information to better our daily life and our mental well being. I'm your host, Ron Rappaport. I would like to thank all our listeners, our viewers on our YouTube channel, It's a Wrap with Rap, the podcast uncut, and our sponsors and supporters for making this podcast such a success. Now, besides being heard on all major platforms, the podcast may also be accessed through our website. It's a wrap where you can find all the episodes, previews of future episodes, and unique products and services offered from our sponsors, as well as the podcast Book Nook, showcasing many of the books our guests have authored that can be purchased on Amazon. My guest today is Jennifer Lee. Jennifer is the creator and host of the I Need Blue podcast. Her passion and purpose are to help trauma survivors feel that they belong, are loved, understood, and empowered. Jennifer has also authored her memoir, Why I Survived, and is a speaker before local groups, nonprofits, and national organizations. Jennifer has survived dating abuse, armed robbery, and abduction and stalking. No one is immune from the devastating effects of living with trauma, whether from a violent crime, an abusive relationship, addiction, human trafficking, or many other situations less often discussed. Jen is here with us today to reach out to those who have experienced a traumatic event and share and expose the experiences to those also unaware of this situation. Welcome, Jen, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Ron. I'm excited to be
Oh,
here.
great. Great to have you. And Jen is also a fellow Floridian. She's a few miles south of me. So it's great to have a Floridian on for a change. Let's start out first about your podcast, I Need Blue.net. It's a unique name. Why the name, and does it stand for something?
Yes, so I'll give you a little background. In 2021, God called me to start a podcast and to share my story of surviving armed robbery and abduction, and to also use it as a way to reinforce why we need our law enforcement and our first responders. Because part of my real life event with the robbery is I had to call 911 dispatch. They truly are the first responder. And then law enforcement rescued us. Not to give away all of the big pieces, but trust me, that's a very complex story. so,
Yeah.
anyway, I knowing that's what the story that I was supposed to share, I was like, I need blue. I was like, yeah. I was like, I like that.
Yeah.
And so I went and I had a little bit of help creating the what I call the first logo, which is what you and I talked about. It has the thin blue line to represent law enforcement and our first responders. Then a few months actually after I launched my podcast, I went to Podfest, where I received some very valuable feedback from a peer in regards to my logo and the name of my podcast, basically stating, I don't really know that this is stories about everyday people, such as yourself. And I was very appreciative of the feedback. And I was like, she's right. I don't want to miss out on my audience. So, what am I going to do with this? So, I threw it around in my head a little bit and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to figure this out. So, I created a new logo, same I Need Blue, but this time I attached an acronym to it. So, I Need Blue is space where survivors of life, does not have to be a violent crime, can come and they feel like they belong, are loved, understood, and empowered to share. And so that is how the other half of I Need Blue was born. And I pretty much brand myself as a community storyteller. Because, as you know, like in your very introduction, we tell stories from all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great acronym. Now, can you tell us what the podcast includes? Is it the varied subject matter? What's all involved?
Hmm. Yes, it is definitely varied. Sometimes they say you should have a niche, like maybe stories all about domestic violence or something like that. That was not what I was called to do, not what was in my heart. So some of the topics do include like the domestic violence, like I mentioned, fentanyl, the foster care system, let's see. Oh, grandparent alienation, parental alienation, being held back in third grade. Let's see. Military in regards to first responders. We talk about blue suicide. We talk about, say, for example, being a EMT during COVID, the PTSD that first responders suffer, a whole array of topics. I feel like everybody has a story, number one, and has experienced some sort of trauma. It's just everybody defines trauma in their own way. And so,
Yeah,
no matter what your situation is, I have space for you.
that's great. So it doesn't have to be, for example, somebody hitting you over the head or something like that. It can be because trauma can be defined, from many sources, so to speak. So you
Absolutely.
you you encompass all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a gentleman who was held back in third grade. He's now an Emmy winner, like, director, whatnot. But, he just talks about those feelings of failure,
Yeah.
of embarrassment, of, my friends have moved on. They're in another classroom, and why am I still here? So it's kind of interesting what happens in our childhood, because generally most of the trauma begins in our childhood, and then where we carry it into adult and how
And
it
we do,
affects us.
and we do, and it never goes away, does it? It just never, you can't, people just can't forget about it. It's there. It's,
I've The triggers never end, and they're so surprising. You're like, okay, I'm good. I'm over that, right? And then all of a sudden, I don't know, something happens, and you're like,
mhm.
oh, yeah, take you
Yeah.
back.
I guess it shapes, at a young age, it can really shape somebody's personality forever, really.
Absolutely. And I think that's why, especially with the I Need Blue podcast, is I talk about topics that many people don't want to talk about. Say, for example, intrafamiliar sexual abuse. That is like 1 in 4 families experience that type of abuse. Now, you don't talk about that,
Right,
right?
right.
But it needs to be talked about because it's way too common. And so, until we get to where we can get comfortable within those uncomfortable spaces and conversations, it's just going to go. It's just going to be, a secret.
Yeah, and speaking about secrets, that just dawned on me. I was reading the other day, you hear about all these trafficking cases,
Mhm.
thousands, I don't know, maybe millions in the world, but a lot in the United States. And you come to find out that a lot of it stems from the actual families that are doing it. It's just not all these dark people coming out of, the woodwork. It's actually coming, but nobody talks about this
Mhm.
and nobody really knows about it. So I do you cover have you covered that too?
Yes, I have covered that topic as well. And you are right, it's sick, but families will traffic their own kids, babies, as young as babies. But yes, I have a guest who was trafficked by her family. I also, because I also include nonprofits, because I feel like resources are just really, really important to include in my message as well. So I have like an international network of hearts. They work down at the southern border in Tijuana
Hmm.
and to help with the prevention of human trafficking, but then also to help the women and the men, the girls and the boys. So we also want to remember that boys are included in this
Oh
too.
yeah.
Yeah, that are being trafficked, so they help with that. But yes, I have several episodes of individuals, even say, for example, like strip clubs. That's a form of trafficking. They might have a pimp or whatever. Anytime you're forced to do something sexually, even labor, whatever it is, against your will, then that's a form of trafficking.
Sure, sure. Now, Jen, you experienced an armed robbery and abduction in 2012. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure. I, like many people, just never thought anything like that would happen. I got up, went to work on a Saturday, and I was store manager of a women's clothing store. Loved what I did. And it was a Saturday night about 7 p.m., still light outside. And there was, probably about 9 of us total in the store, including children. And I'm in the fitting room area and helping some ladies. And behind me, I hear, "Give me all your money." And I stopped, but I didn't turn around because I'm used to hearing, "Can you zip me up? Do you have jewelry for
Yeah.
this?" Like it wasn't registering, right? So then again, I hear, "Give me all your money." And at that point, I turn around and there's a masked man pointing a gun at me, close enough that I could touch it. And I remember I looked at his eyes and then the gun and then his eyes. And I turned and I headed towards the register area, at which he also kind of brandished the gun for all of the customers to follow me as well. So that leads to a series of events. And I purposely say events because people will be like, "Well, how long was it? Like, how long was he in the store?" I couldn't tell you. Like, time stops and everything just becomes events after that. So we get to the register and we had 2 cash drawers. So I give him the cash from both of those. And the customers, he starts asking for their money. And I can hear praying. I can hear the children crying and the mom trying to console them. And, Our Father, a lady shushing the gentleman who was praying because he was loud. He didn't want to disturb the robber. And he asked me if we had a safe, which we did not have a safe. And then he asked about a door behind me, a swinging door that went to the back room. And he was like, "Okay." Then he asked me again if we have a safe. And I said, "No, we don't have a safe." And I realized in that moment that he didn't believe me
Mm-hmm.
and that that's a problem, right?
Right.
But then I also knew that when he asked about that door to the back room, that he was going to have us go back there. And I had what I can best describe as an out of body experience where um, these these strangers had become my kids, and I was going to do everything I could to protect them, knowing the robber is still in the store. He has our money. It's light outside, and not knowing now what his intentions are. I had everybody go first through that door into the back room because if he was going to hurt somebody, I needed him to hurt me and not anybody else. Because in that moment, I don't know what I would have done if he hurt anybody.
Yeah. So
So we go.
you took over the guardian role.
Yes, I it just kicked in. And I will tell you, every time I had to go to court and it would get to that scene, is I would break down because the emotions are so intense in that
Yeah.
moment. I'm a mom, but I'd never been in that position where I had to protect them to that degree. But it's very intense, right?
Yeah.
But
Right.
yes, it just kicked in, and they were my main focus, making sure they were safe. So they go to the back room and around the corner to where my desk is, and the robber stops me and he asked me again if we have a safe. And I said, "No, we don't have a safe." We go by the back door that goes out to the dumpster, and I told him it's locked. If you push on it, probably gonna make an alarm go off. So now we're all in the back room, lined up in front of my desk, and he has me pull the landline out of the wall. This is when everybody still had a landline, right?
Yeah.
Radio Shack was next door too. So
The good
all of
old
this
days.
really dates the story absolutely. And so I pull the phone out, and in the meantime, he's asking for everybody's cell phones and taking them. And my cell phone was in my pocket. And I remember thinking, "I really don't want to give him my cell phone. Like, I
Right.
really don't want to. Um, there was another room back there that had a door, and it was where the district stored boxes of hangers and fixtures, things like that. And he asked me about that room. And instinctually, I was like, he's going to put us in that room. And when I turned to go, he's going to see the outline of my phone in my pants. So I gave up my cell phone. And then when he told us to go into that room again, I had everybody else go first. And then I went in last. And at that point, we're all kind of lined up against the wall, and he points the gun at us and he says, nobody say a word. He says, nobody say anything and nobody will get hurt. And mind you, I can hear crying, the mom, the praying, like all of this going on.
Yeah.
And he asked me something weird about the door. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know it was something about it shutting. Does it shut or does it lock? We had never shut that door. We had no reason to shut that door. So I told him I didn't know, right? So he looked at us one more time and he said, don't say anything and nobody will get hurt. At which point he goes over to the door and he pulls it shut. Being that the door had never been pulled shut before, I remember the scraping of the wood, from him having to pull it. And now we're all in this room and I can hear the front doorbell go off. Because there were times as store manager, I would be in the back doing shipment or whatever and have to listen for the doorbell when, a customer might enter
Yeah.
the store. So I'm like, okay, I'm assuming he left. Now, in the room, there is one of the customers. She starts to have a panic attack. I can see her granddaughter trying to help her, so I go over to her. And I remember I pretty much pinned her up against the wall and I looked in her eyes and I said, baby, I said, I need you to stay with me. And I said, I need you to breathe. And without knowing, I'm trying to get her to regulate her breathing. I'm trying to get her to regulate her breathing and to
Right.
calm down to match mine. And it was not working. And so slowly the weight of her body started to fall down. And I had to call the gentleman who was with us as well over to help me because she was going to fall. So he came over and we got her down to the ground, at which time I heard another doorbell. So now I've heard two doorbells, right? I have a lady having a panic attack. But luckily, my sales associate had put her cell phone in her bra. And so she pulled it out. And I told her, I said, get behind me. And I said, I need you to call 911 and then I need you to hang up. Because if the robber had come back in the store, I didn't want him to open that door and see her on the phone, right? That would be very bad. So she called 911, hung up, at
So,
which
so
time
she didn't
then
even say anything to 911, in other words.
she called them. Well, she called them and said, listen, here's where we are,
Oh,
da da da
okay.
da da.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then, yeah, and then she hung up.
Yeah.
I didn't want her to stay on the phone with them till
Right,
they
right,
got
right.
there,
Yeah.
type thing. Yeah, good question. And so now my beautiful customer that was having a panic attack transitions into a seizure.
Oh, wow.
I know how to put on a band-aid. That is the extent of my medical experience. And I will tell you the moment panic wanted to set in is the moment she started to have a seizure. My body was like, uh-oh. And I was like, nope. I was like, you gotta suck this down. I was like, because if this lady dies, like I'm done. You might as well just put me in a hospital forever. Like I can't function if she's not okay. And so I tell my sales associate, I was like, I need your phone. And so I made the call because, again, I don't know what's going on outside the door of this room. And if he pushed the door open, I wanted him to see me on the phone. It didn't matter to
John David Graham, and It's a Wrap with Rap podcast guest and supporter, has authored his multiple award-winning novel, Running as Fast as I Can. The book is an American odyssey of survival, hope, and forgiveness. Our author, John David Graham, has always been a curious person, trying a new road, a different direction, another adventure, or maybe failure. As a result, he has gone from homelessness to door-to-door salesman, minister, journalist, to founding a nonprofit agency helping people restart their lives after prison. At age 75, he published Running as Fast as I Can, which was rejected 200 times, but now has garnered 25 awards, including the prestigious 2024 Story Trade Book Award for Debut Novel of the Year. The novel follows the life of Daniel Robinson, who grew up in the mill slums surrounding Pittsburgh. All Daniel ever wanted was a family that loved him, but was instead ignored by his mother and had a drunk for a father who used everyone for a punching bag. The book follows Daniel's search for love and its failures and his wanderings across the country during the turbulent 1960s, where he gets caught up in the hippie drug invasion in San Francisco, racial violence in Cleveland and Detroit, and a deadly anti war protest at Kent State University. From his failed relationships with women after nearly losing his mind, he again goes on the road, but more of a dead man walking experience until he meets Kate, who is running from her demons. Together, they get a second chance at love and the family they both want. Because of his experience with street people, Daniel is offered a job helping men coming from prison. Daniel and Kate find housing for Charles Vickers, a black man who spent 20 years in prison for a rape Daniel is convinced he never committed. The local community is enraged, especially when a local girl disappears, and Daniel is the focus of their rage. The story bridges the gap between literary and commercial fiction and will be enjoyed by those who were moved by reading Forrest Gump and Where the Crawdads Sing. Running as Fast as I Can is a page turner story that you will identify with because it is on some level everyone's story. Running as Fast as I Can is available from Amazon in hardcover, paperback, Kindle, and audiobook formats. Information about the book will be listed in the podcast notes.
Me at that point, I needed to help this lady. So 911 dispatch was amazing. I was like, wow, they just have the voice of this very stressed out woman on the phone, and they're walking me through trying to get this lady stable,
Yeah,
right? So I'm on the phone with them, and then all of a sudden the door pushes open. And I think everybody in the room stopped breathing for a second. And then when we realized that it was law enforcement, it was like, oh God,
yeah,
like,
yeah, it's over. It's over.
yeah, like we're
Yeah,
safe. Thank goodness. Um, and so, yes, they came, an ambulance arrived to take care of the lady. And then that began a whole nother chapter of this whole experience. You know, when he left, I found out that he had taken my wallet as well. I lived alone. It had my license, which had my address.
yeah,
So I dealt with my sense of safety, not even just shaken, it was literally shattered. Literally shattered.
yeah.
My job was my second home, and now this guy knows where I live, if he still has my wallet, yada yada. And the one thing that haunted me a lot though when I went to therapy is the what ifs. As crazy as that sounds, because I know what happened, right? I lived it. But my mind kept going to the what ifs, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah,
What if somebody died? What if he took you in the bathroom and raped you? What if this? What if that? What if he came to your home? And I had to really process through the what ifs to realize, okay, that didn't happen, you know?
yeah.
So that was really hard for me. I'd be curious to see if that was hard for other people in regards to the what ifs. But yeah.
I,
So there's more if I go, keep going into court and whatnot. But as far as the actual incident, that is the incident.
what do you attribute your being calm, your calmness to the robbery? What do you attribute that to? Because it sounds like you were very calm when the whole thing was coming down.
Yeah, even the officer, he looked at me and he was like, "Well, you're relatively calm for everything that just happened." And I remember I looked at him and I said, "Well, just give me a little while and I won't be." And I smoked cigarettes at that time. And I said, "But right now," I was like, "I'm going to go out back and smoke a cigarette and you are welcome to come with me if you want."
I'm probably going to smoke a pack.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Wow.
you know, you don't know how you're going to act till you're in it. You know, you can be like, "Oh my God, I would have passed out, da 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 da," but you don't know that. Like, you really don't know that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
So how did you cope afterwards? Like, were there any triggers that set you off? And like, did you seek therapy? I guess you did.
Yeah, I've always been a big believer in therapy. There are so
Yeah.
many different modalities on how to heal. I think you just have to find the one that works for you, or it might take five that work for you. Whatever it is you need. I think when you have trauma, it's just continually learning and always working through it, right? Like we talked about earlier. Therapy, yes. After 10 days, I was basically, it was, they gave me 10 days of leave. And so
That was
even
nice.
though, yeah,
Yeah.
my therapist was like, "No, you are not ready to go back to work." And but I was like, "Well, I got to try." You know? And so I went to the back room and I just remember standing outside the door where we had finally been left, you know. And it was like light bulbs flash, flash, flash of all the everything that I saw, the people crying, the lady on the floor, the seizure, all of this stuff just going off. And it was awful. And we had a conference call, and afterwards my boss was like, "Well, how are you feeling?" And I said, "I don't think I'm okay." And she said, "Well, you're gonna have to make a decision and let me know because if you can't work, I have to replace you."
Yeah. That's the
And
harsh reality of the whole thing.
yeah, that was really hard because I was very accomplished manager, very well respected, very driven, result driven. Loved my job, you know what I'm saying? And, so then to be told that, it was on top of everything else I was dealing with. Now I felt like I was a failure. I saved people's lives, but I guess I wasn't good enough. Now I lost my job, all of these other things. So I was like, okay, I went on workman's comp. I did some more therapy. I worked with the police a lot the first week after I was with them almost every day, but partly because I felt safest when I was with them, to be honest with you. They ended up catching the driver of the getaway car. And even though I didn't see him, I got pulled into court in front of a jury. That's very scary. And I would just cry. Every time I had to go to court, I would just cry. It was so traumatic. And what was really hard for me that first time at court is I wasn't prepared for the fact that there would be friends or family in the courtroom. So that brought about that whole fear, again, in a different kind of way, right? So now others know what I look like. They could know what I drive. They could follow me to my house, like all of these things.
Yeah.
Obviously, none of it happened, but in the moment, this is what, I was
Oh,
going
sure.
through. And so eventually, I ended up moving a little bit further north of where I was at and getting a different job and kind of just starting over, getting closer to family, right? And so 2 years after the robbery, I get a call and I am being pulled into federal court because he has appealed the sentence. And so federal court is a totally different beast from like the county courts. It honestly, like Law and Order, all of the dark wood and everything, like that's what it looked like. Look like.
Really? Now, I
Yes.
don't understand why were you called to federal court?
So he was charged with, was it 9 felonies? But there had been other robberies month and a half, 2 months earlier
Oh,
that they were able to connect him to. There
okay.
were like, I don't know, there were like 12 robberies. My store just happened to be the one where I could ID him and he got caught.
Uh,
He got
um,
caught, right? So I end
yeah.
up being pretty much the main go-to person for all of this.
So back then they didn't have cameras in the
We did
store.
not,
Okay.
no cameras,
Yeah.
no, nope. And so, yeah, so it ended up in federal court because there were so many locations and whatnot. And he had 9 felonies, I do believe. And back then, wearing a face mask was a felony.
What year did it take place? 2012?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I don't mean to upstage anything here, but I share your experience as well, believe it or not. But this dates back to 1971. I was robbed working retail. It was nighttime. It was just myself and another associate. And a fella came up to me, asked me, did we have something? And I thought that was strange. And then he pulled out a revolver. He didn't stick it in my face or anything. And he just said, give me the money. Now, this was before drugs were a big deal and all that, you know. So he just wanted money. And I emptied out the drawer like you did. And I guess back then people weren't using charge cards as much, so there was more money in the till. Whereas
Hmm.
today, I wouldn't think there'd be much money in the till. You know, everybody uses charge cards or debit cards. And then I went to empty out the other drawer, and the associate up front was looking at me like, "What are you doing?" Because all the money. And I said to the robber, "Do you want the change?" He said, "Yeah, give me the change." And I did hit when he left, I did hit the panic attack. You know, there's a button that went right to the police. And the police came and the detectives came. And back then, there wasn't a whole lot of therapy like there is today. I mean, it just was, you got robbed. And I did have to go close the store, went down to the police station, went through the mug shots looking for this guy, couldn't find it. And you're not going to believe this, but when I called my boss to tell him what happened, he was upset with me.
Hmm.
He was upset. Why did you have to close the store early to go down there? And I said, are you kidding me?
Right.
We just got robbed at gunpoint. And yeah, I was spoofed for a long time, you know, especially working that late shift and all that. And I just wound up quitting and going into a different arena of retail. And it there was no therapy, there was nothing. I was very young when it happened, so I don't know if age plays into the factors into this, but I just thought it was interesting, you know, when I read your book and everything.
Yeah.
I could relate to it.
Yeah, and it's funny because you mentioned about the coins. And for me, because they say talk as little as possible. So
Yeah,
I remember the coins. I actually did like this little Vanna White where I took my hand and I
yeah,
didn't say anything. And he
yeah,
opted not for the coins. But yeah, it's funny, the little things.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, what's interesting is you had mentioned triggers. We talked about that a little while ago.
Yeah.
Did not know this particular trigger was in me. Actually, I did 2 episodes on it. It's so raw. I think it's like episode 9 or 10. My husband is like, let's go get our concealed carry. Mind you, grew up in northern Michigan, hunting family. My dad had guns, hunter safety, everything was safe.
Blair Sorrell, a guest and supporter of the It's a Wrap with Rap podcast, has written her amazing debut memoir titled A Schizoid at Smith: How Overparenting Leads to Underachieving. It is a kaleidoscopic look into a world viewed through a unique and brilliant mind. Blair writes about a little known condition she has called schizoid personality disorder, occurring in about 3 to 5% of the general United States population, that she had properly diagnosed in her 30s. Strange as it may seem, some status seeking parents sabotage their children's chance of success. Early disparagement imprints lifelong low self esteem, a social phobia impairing concentration, along with a dread of authority figures. Genius or genes do not factor so much as the fundamental influence of competent, caring guardians. The book is a breakthrough female narrative instilling greater understanding and possible prevention of this condition. The memoir is set mostly in the 1960s, the heyday of classic rock. Icons appear as bit players, providing Blair's saving grace and becoming her special friend. Blair recalls vivid life experiences stemming from her distant father and a mother overly strict, stressing the perils of even the smallest infraction, using a vocabulary no small child could understand, and leading her to become psychologically burdened. Read as Blair's gradually eked out a path to attend university, but was rarely comfortable among fellow students or any crowd, had few friends, and found her solace mainly in popular music of the era. Blair bears her soul, going through her family dynamics and their contribution to her suffering. On the positive side, the memoir is heartfelt. It offers valuable insights into the impact of overparenting on a child's psyche and serves as a cautionary tale. Share Blair's journey through humor, hope, and all that stellar music. Blair's honesty and resilience shine through her storytelling, making this book a compelling read. As you read, perhaps you will also emerge a better person. The memoir, titled A Schizoid at Smith: How Overparenting Leads to Underachieving, is available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle formats from Amazon and Barnes& and Noble.
Safe, no fear of guns, nothing, right? I respected them. But when my husband is like, let's go get our concealed carry, I was like, okay. And then as the class kept getting closer and closer, I kept getting this odd feeling in me. I was like, what is going on? It's like anxiety, right?
Yeah,
And I was like, I don't think I can do this. So I called the gun range and I talked to the general manager and I said, just let me tell you a little bit about my past. I said, I want to do this, but I don't think I should. And come to find out they actually had worked with some Parkland school shooting survivors, had been there as well. So he knew very well kind of the trauma behind a gun, and whatnot. So
yeah.
he was like, I recommend that you take a private class, take some private classes. And I said, okay. So I was lined up with Freddie, love Freddie. He was great. Had no idea that just the thought of seeing a gun, I cried in the parking lot before I even went in to the shooting range. Then seeing a gun, and then I had to touch the gun. And then day two was I had to pull the trigger and feel the recoil and the sound. And it was very traumatic.
Yeah,
I made it through, right? And got my license and everything. And I would go and I would practice, but I couldn't practice long, like 10 minutes. And then my body is like, nope, I just want to go cry in the corner now. So, triggers, yes, they can be in there in ways that you never what before the robbery, what was okay and didn't bother me. My boys had guns, all kinds of stuff.
yeah,
Then after the robbery was like, no, this
sure.
making me very anxious now. Did you have any?
The only thing I had was fear of coming in there and working.
Yeah,
Fear of night coming, the darkness, and every time the door opened, I was like shaky, like who's
yep,
there? You know, uh,
yep,
I don't think they had concealed carry back then, but I mean, I just didn't know anything about guns, so it wouldn't have mattered.
right,
But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it definitely was traumatic, and like I said, after a couple of weeks, I said I can't deal with this. I've got to get out of here. I can't work
yeah.
here.
Yeah. And story 3 in my book that is references the stalking. That brought up all of the triggers again from the robbery. The sense of safety shattered. The afterwards, the what ifs, what if this happened, what if that happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was awful as well. But again, I took that as okay, this is God saying, Jen, let's talk about personal safety now.
Yeah, really.
And I said, okay, let's do this.
I want to move on a little bit.
Yeah.
The robbery wasn't the only traumatic event you experienced. And by the way, her book is very good. I recommend it. It's also in our book nook, Why I Survived, Jennifer Lee, available on Amazon. There was dating abuse and stalking. Tell us about a little bit about the dating abuse and what tips you have for both men and women concerning this, because this isn't talked about very often either.
Yeah, especially with men. Yeah, especially with the men survivors. So dating abuse. Yes, there's a difference. Domestic violence abuse tends to be when you cohabitate together, where dating abuse is basically you don't live together. Yeah, that was a long distance relationship, and ironically, even in a long distance relationship, boy, did he get me. I went from a very independent, paid my own bills, happy individual to whatever, walking on eggshells, afraid to upset him, afraid he would leave me, afraid I would not get anything better. It was insane. Like it's slow and subtle. I am of the age where Oprah, oh, I love to watch Oprah, right? I was like 24 p.m. Oprah was on, and I would watch the domestic violence survivors, a lady sit on the couch, and I can't leave. I don't know how to leave. And I would be like, just leave. Like, I don't get it. Why aren't you leaving? It's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
easy. Yeah, just pack a bag and go. Oh, yeah, I know that is not the case now. And so, in fact, leaving can be the most dangerous part of the whole situation. That is something to keep in mind. Is yeah,
In
that
other
can
words,
be.
once you estrange yourself from that situation, there could be retaliation. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, the abuser is going to get very mad, and
Yeah,
they already know the tactics that they used in the past.
yeah.
And God forbid they actually see you trying to leave or whatever, then sometimes even worse things can happen in the process if they are watching you. So yes, there's a lot of great facts and information, and they're on my website as well, and there are episodes on signs of dating abuse, how to get out. Here are resources.
Oh, that's
um,
great. Okay.
yeah, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is on there. I know where I used to live, there was a certified domestic violence shelter there. So many times people, it's not until you really need it that you go searching for it.
Yeah.
So I always I like to, like, when I moved, the first thing I did is like, okay, where's the domestic violence shelter? Not because I need it, but if I know somebody, especially because I'm out and about in the community and I think somebody might need some help, I want to be able to say, okay, here's where you can go, something like that.
Okay. So for everybody out there who needs more information on dating abuse, you can go to what ineedblue.net.
Yeah, and there's a resources tab there.
Okay, and there's the resources there because we obviously don't have time on the podcast to go into all that. What about you were also stalked? What about our tips to handle that situation on the website as well?
Yes, there's a whole downloadable PDF with 10 safety tips.
Oh, great,
Yep.
great. Okay. And I remember reading the book, your stalking experience
Was at a
was just a
conference.
stranger, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was at a conference. And so
Oh yeah.
yeah, I had met him because we both were in the same line of work. So we chatted a little bit, took a picture for social media, and that was it. And then all of a sudden, I realized he kind of started to show up in some of the same places.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh, that's odd. And then
This is
that,
not
and
good. Yeah.
yeah, listen to your instincts. Like, number one is listen to your instincts.
So your gut, listen to your gut, right?
Yes, yes,
Because I'm sure
please.
when he was invading your space,
Yeah,
your gut was telling you something's not right.
yeah. Well, and so many times we're like, oh, I don't want to think bad of someone, or I don't want to hurt somebody's feeling by telling them, please take a step back. You're making me uncomfortable. But you
Yeah,
know what? Your safety is your number one priority.
right. And you have that right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the safety tips on her website as well. Moving on, you wrote the memoir, Why I Survived. Like I said, it's a great read. What prompted you to write it, make yourself vulnerable? What was the catalyst for that?
I actually started writing the dating abuse story many years ago, and then I ripped it up thinking that that would help me heal. And that doesn't work. Being vulnerable. It all came along with my podcast. I started to interview guests of dating, abuse, domestic violence survivors, and through them, I started to find my courage.
Okay.
I was like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. And so truly, it was from other survivors that I found my courage to
Yeah.
finally put to pen to paper the story that I had ripped up years before.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. So in your opinion, why do you think it did survive?
To bring me right to where I am today.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yep. God had a much greater purpose for me, one that I definitely would not have. I'd be like, you're crazy if you thought I was going to have a podcast. I don't even listen to podcasts, right?
yeah, same with me. I've been doing this, we're going on 4 years, and different scenario, of course, with the cancer and all that. But I didn't talk to me 5 years ago, I would have said, "What are you talking about?"
But where do I find a podcast? What is that?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yep. Honestly, it just brought me right to where I am today, which is fulfilling God's purpose. I look back, I don't say I wish that didn't happen. I look at it as okay, now that has helped me to bring a lived experience
Right.
to others. And I'm using it now to create a platform for others to share, to come and share. So many people, they just want somebody to listen,
Yeah,
or they want to just they're like, I want to help people too. I want to get it out. I just don't know how to share it or where to share it or whatever. And that's where, podcasters like you and me and our platforms, come in.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's great that you're doing that. After reading your memoir, your book, what do you hope the readers can take away from reading the book?
The number one, you matter, right?
Okay, yeah,
No matter what, you matter. And the fourth story is one we hadn't touched upon, and that really is a universal message for everyone. And there's a difference between our intentions and our purpose, right? And
okay,
that when we have faith and we overcome our fear, we can fulfill our purpose. Fear can be debilitating, right?
right,
And so having faith and um, surrounding yourself with others so you know you're not alone, you'll find strength in that. You'll find your tribe. Lean into others. We all have moments of weakness, right? Or moments of fear. So if we can find others to inspire us and to just hold us through those moments till we're ready to stand on our feet, because then what's going to happen is there's going to be moments where we're going to be holding somebody else.
right,
Yes.
yeah. Do you have any new projects in the works for the future?
No. I go where I am led, to be honest with you. And right now I'm doing what I've done, which is get my guests and talk, and I'm out in my community. People ask if I'm going to write another book. I was like, not that's not in my plan at this point. I need to do some more speaking. That totally challenges my comfort zone, and yeah, I have to work up my courage to do
Gotcha.
that some more.
So when it happens, it happens.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty
Okay.
much.
Jen, I want to close out for those out there struggling with post-traumatic disorders, listening to this, and there'll be a lot of people listening to it. What words of advice do you have for them?
Be gentle. Yeah. Be gentle on yourself. There is strength in asking for help, right? And you're not alone. Yep.
Okay,
That's
so the key word is you don't want to be alone in this. You want to reach out.
absolutely. Yep. You're not alone.
Okay. Jen, how can people contact you?
Hmm. Well, you can go to my website, www.ineedblue.net. There's a contact tab there, or you can just email me info@ineedblue.net.
Okay. So we're going to list Jen's contact information in the podcast notes. Jen, I want to thank you very much for coming on the podcast to bring this important subject to light. Traumatic events, they happen every day to many people, and your presence here, I'm sure, has helped many people out there listening and viewing to the podcast. I want to wish you good luck with your podcast and future projects if you have them, and I'm sure you will, and all the work you do to help people involved with this subject. It was a pleasure having you on. Your book is excellent. It is in the it's a wrap with rap.com book nook. It makes excellent reading, so you can look it up on Amazon as well. So Jen, once again, thanks for coming on.
Aw, thank you so much, Ron.
Okay, comments and suggestions. You can email me at it's a wrap with rap@gmail.com. We have a Facebook group. We have a couple thousand people in there. It's a private group, so if you want to join, just email me and we'll get you situated in there. Instagram, we're on It's a Wrap with Rap podcast. We're on Twitter or X as it's known at rapper WRAPPER 130. Our website, once again, is it's a wrap with rap.com. Our YouTube, all the episodes on YouTube, It's a Wrap with Rap, the podcast uncut. I want to thank everyone for listening or viewing. Please stay safe. And for now, it's a wrap. This podcast is being brought to you in part by the veteran-founded Hero Soap Company located in Phoenix, Arizona. In today's environment, we must be aware of the products we apply to our skin. As a two-time cancer survivor, I cannot afford to take chances, and I use these products myself. The soaps will leave you feeling clean and refreshed. All the products made by the Hero Soap Company are made in the United States with the highest quality ingredients sourced from companies in the United States whenever possible. The products are made in small batches to ensure high quality and contain premium essential oils and fragrance. All Hero soaps are created without synthetic colorants, parabens, and sulfates that are irritating to the eyes, skin, mouth, and lungs, and are cruelty-free, meaning these products are not tested on animals. Each 5-ounce bar of soap is handmade in Phoenix, Arizona, and the body wash is available in 8 ounces with such refreshing scents as lime, bourbon, and frost. You will absolutely love this soap. Please also check out their gear for sale. All the products are reasonably priced. Being veteran founded, the company understands the dedication and sacrifice that each family makes to serve their country. A portion of sales is donated back to charities such as Operation Finally Home, Operation Interdependence, and the Gary Sinise Foundation that are focused on helping veterans and our first responders. Over 1,000 bars have been sent to our deployed troops. Please check out their website, herosoapcompany.com, for pricing and a detailed description of all the products. Now, when ordering, please use the code RAP for a 10% discount. The company information will be listed in the podcast notes.